welcome to our deep dive into something that's got us all a little puzzled.
The U.S. economy in early 2024.
Oh, yeah.
We're about to get our hands dirty with the Federal Reserve's Beige Book.
Okay.
These economic dispatches from different parts of the country, think of it like this.
Yeah.
We've got these reports from January, February, April, May, July, and August.
Okay.
And they paint a bit of an economic head-scratcher.
It's true.
Right.
These snapshots from the year show a fascinating paradox.
Okay.
Almost like the economy couldn't decide if it wanted to sprint forward or tap the brakes.
Right. And here's the real head-scratcher, even with all this uncertainty. Wages kept going up.
Wow.
It's like gravity decided to take a break, but only for salaries.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's rewind to the beginning of the year, January 2024. Everyone's recovering from the holiday season.
Okay.
There's this buzz in the air.
Beige Book tells us consumer spending was up.
Yeah.
Especially in New York, folks were splurging on clothes, toys, the works. Tourism was also robust, particularly in NYC.
Sounds like a promising start, right? Almost like the economy was kicking off the new year with a celebratory toast.
Well,
Okay.
there were a few whispers of concern beneath the celebratory tunes.
Oh, really?
Manufacturing activity was down in most Federal Reserve districts.
Okay.
And remember those high interest rates everyone was grappling with?
Oh, how could we forget? It felt like every time you turned on the radio, someone was complaining about interest rates.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, those high rates were throwing cold water on big purchases,
Yeah.
especially in the auto and real estate sectors.
Right.
Think about it. When borrowing money for a house or a car becomes more expensive, people tend to think twice, maybe even 3 times.
Make sense.
Really?
It's like choosing between a weekend getaway and paying your electricity bill.
Exactly.
Right. But at the same time, there was this sense that interest rates might eventually go down, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that hope, that anticipation of lower rates played a role in keeping the economy afloat.
Okay. Then as we move into February and April, we see this push and pull between optimism and those lingering economic anxieties.
So not a complete turnaround,
Right.
but not a total disaster either.
Exactly. February saw a slight uptick in economic activity,
Okay.
which was encouraging. People seemed a bit more confident about the job market.
Okay.
More jobs popping up, except for those really niche roles.
Like trying to find a chef who specializes in gluten-free, sugar-free, taste-free cakes.
You got it.
Okay.
And wage growth was pretty steady during this period.
Okay.
But there's always a but. Isn't there inflation or those rising prices? They were as stubborn as ever.
Okay.
Though some costs like fuel and steel did see a dip.
Okay, so a mixed bag so far.
Yeah.
What happened when spring sprung? Did April showers bring economic flowers?
Well, the economy kept growing, which was a good sign.
Okay.
Home sales perked up a bit. And remember those supply chain issues that have been causing headaches for businesses?
Don't remind me. It felt like everything was out of stock for months.
Right.
Well, things were finally starting to ease up. In that department, products were moving more smoothly, which was a huge relief for everyone.
Okay.
For a moment, it seemed like things were looking up.
And I sense a but coming, this being the economy and all.
This upward trend couldn't last forever, could it?
You're right on the money with that one.
Okay.
May rolled in, and, well, it brought a bit of a reality check with it.
Oh.
Remember all that budding optimism we talked about?
Yeah.
It started fading faster than a cheap lawn chair left out in the sun.
Ouch.
What happened? Did everyone suddenly decide to become hermits and stop spending money altogether?
Not quite. But there was a definite shift in consumer behavior.
How so?
People were getting nervous, and a lot of that anxiety stemmed from,
Let me guess, the upcoming election.
bingo. The political climate was heating up, and all that uncertainty surrounding the election had folks feeling a little cautious, to say the least.
Yeah.
It was like trying to plan a vacation when you're not sure you'll have a job to come back to.
Talk about stressful. So how did this election jitters play out in the economy? Were people hoarding ramen noodles and building underground bunkers?
Thankfully, no, but they were definitely watching their wallets a bit more closely.
Oh.
It was nice to have purchases.
Yeah.
They took a backseat to the essentials
Okay.
and the auto industry.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say it was a bumpy ride.
Okay.
Some areas held steady while others saw sales slump.
A roller coaster ride then? And by
Yeah.
July, I'm guessing that election uncertainty wasn't just a whisper in the wind anymore.
It was more like that catchy song you can't get out of your head playing on a loop in the background of every economic decision.
Oh, God. Yeah, I know the feeling.
Businesses were worried about potential policy changes.
Right.
Inflation was still lurking, and global conflicts weren't helping matters.
Of course not.
It was a recipe for No, let's just say it wasn't the most relaxing summer.
Definitely not the summer Friday vibes we were all hoping for.
So with all of this going on,
Hmm.
what happened in August, did things calm down?
Or did the economy decide to take a swan dive into a pool of uncertainty?
August was a bit like the calm before the storm. This odd mix of small victories, stagnation, and a dash of decline.
Okay.
Some areas saw tiny bits of growth, others flatlined, and a few even went backward.
Okay, so not exactly the grand finale we were hoping for.
Right.
What about hiring? Were businesses still adding to their teams?
Or were they hitting the pause button on new hires?
Hiring definitely slowed down.
Okay.
It was as if businesses were standing at a crossroads, unsure of which direction to take.
It sounds like the economy was playing a game of red light, green light, but forgot the rules.
A very accurate way to put it.
Right.
The first 8 months of 2024 were a whirlwind of mixed signals and uncertainty.
Right.
But there's one thing that doesn't quite fit with this narrative, and it's perhaps the most perplexing piece of the puzzle.
You're talking about those wages again, aren't you?
I am.
They just keep climbing, even with all the economic turbulence.
It's wild, isn't it?
It's like watching a feather float upwards during a hurricane.
Exactly. It's as if wages were on a completely different planet than the rest of the economy.
Right.
And understanding why that is, well, that's the real key to unlocking the mysteries of early 2024.
So we're in the middle of this economic obstacle course.
Uncertainty everywhere you look.
Right.
And wages decide to go rogue.
It's really is remarkable.
What's the story there?
Even as economic growth turned sluggish in August,
Yeah.
wages kept inching upward.
Okay.
It's like watching a car slowly roll uphill even when the engine is sputtering.
Okay, that's a pretty good image for this whole situation, honestly.
What's the force pushing those wages uphill?
Well, remember earlier this year when we talked about how tough it was to find qualified workers?
Right.
Businesses were practically in bidding wars to attract and retain talent.
Right. It felt like everyone was looking for a rocket scientist who could also make a mean latte.
Exactly. That scarcity of skilled workers created a very competitive labor market.
Yeah.
Businesses knew that if they let go of employees,
Yeah.
even with the economy slowing down, finding replacements would be incredibly difficult.
So it's like hanging onto a life raft, even if the storm seems like it's passing.
You don't want to risk being caught empty-handed if another squall rolls in.
Precisely. They were hesitant to lay off workers,
Okay.
fearing they wouldn't be able to fill those positions when the economy picked back up.
Right.
So they held on tight, and that meant keeping wages competitive to retain their valuable employees.
Fascinating. So even though the economy was sending mixed signals,
Yeah.
the labor market was telling a different story, one of scarcity and competition.
Right.
It makes you wonder if maybe wages were reflecting a deeper, more fundamental shift in the workforce landscape.
Now, that's a very astute observation.
And it speaks to the complexities of trying to understand the economy through a single lens.
Right.
These Beige Book reports highlight just how interconnected everything is.
Yeah.
Consumer confidence, business decisions, global events, political landscapes.
It's like a giant game of economic Jenga. Every block you pull out could either stabilize the structure or send it tumbling down.
And sometimes the most unexpected moves end up being the ones that keep the tower standing.
I like that analogy, and in this case, those rising wages,
Yeah.
as counterintuitive as they might seem on the surface,
Yeah.
could have been one of the factors preventing a more dramatic economic downturn.
You mean by keeping money flowing even at a slower pace?
Right.
It provided a sort of buffer against a sharper decline.
Exactly. Right. Remember, when people have more money in their pockets, they tend to spend more,
Right.
which can help stimulate economic activity.
Yeah.
So even though businesses were facing uncertainty, those rising wages might have provided a much-needed cushion for the overall economy.
Okay, so instead of a complete standstill, it was more like the economy shifted into a lower gear.
But kept moving forward.
Yes.
And those seemingly counterintuitive wage increases,
Yeah.
they might have been a crucial part of keeping the engine running, even if it was a bit rough around the edges.
That's a great way to summarize it. It highlights the fact that the economy rarely behaves in predictable,
Right.
textbook ways.
Right.
There are always multiple forces at play, and understanding their interplay is key to making sense of the bigger picture.
So we've traveled from the cautious optimism of the early months to the election-fueled anxieties of the summer, all while this curious wage growth story unfolded in the background.
Right.
As we look back at this period with the benefit of hindsight, what are the major takeaways you want our listener to remember? What were the forces shaping the economic narrative of early 2024?
That's a great question, and I think it boils down to a few key insights.
Okay.
First, the economy, as we've clearly seen,
Yeah.
is rarely a straight line.
Right.
It's full of twists, turns, and detours.
Well,
Those early months of 2024 were a masterclass in unexpected turns.
it's more like a choose-your-own-adventure story, right?
Each decision, each event has the potential to send the plot in a completely different direction.
Precisely. And for anyone trying to navigate this complex landscape,
Bruh, so-
businesses, investors,
Yeah.
even just everyday folks, understanding that inherent unpredictability is crucial.
It's like trying to predict which way a leaf will blow in a hurricane. You can analyze the wind patterns and study the storm's trajectory, but sometimes it just comes down to a little bit of chaos.
Exactly. And speaking of chaos, that brings us to another important takeaway from these Beige Book reports: the undeniable influence of external factors on the economy.
We touched on this a bit with the election jitters,
Yeah.
but what other outside forces were stirring the economic pot?
Well, think back to the reports. The upcoming election wasn't the only source of uncertainty.
Right.
Global events from geopolitical tensions to supply chain disruptions were playing a significant role.
Okay.
Remember how those supply chains were finally starting to untangle in the spring?
Where I felt like we were finally getting a handle on things.
Exactly. But then a new set of challenges emerged: political instability in key manufacturing regions, unexpected weather events disrupting agricultural production. These events might seem distant or unconnected to our daily lives,
Right.
but in our interconnected world, their ripple effects can be felt far and wide, especially in the economic sphere.
It's a stark reminder that the economy isn't this isolated entity. It's intricately woven into the fabric of global events, social trends, and even political climates. Trying to analyze it in a vacuum, well, that's about as useful as a chocolate fire guard.
That's a wonderfully vivid analogy.
Right.
And it underscores the importance of staying informed, of understanding how these external forces can impact the economic landscape. It's not always about making precise predictions. Remember that choose-your-own-adventure analogy.
Right.
But about anticipating potential shifts
Yeah.
and being prepared to adapt.
So it's less about knowing exactly what's going to happen and more about cultivating a mindset of flexibility, of being able to adjust your sails when the economic winds change direction.
Precisely. And that brings us back to our original head-scratcher, those persistently rising wages in the face of economic uncertainty. What initially seemed like an anomaly might actually be a testament to that very adaptability we're talking about.
You mean businesses adapting to a tight labor market by holding on to their employees, even when other economic indicators suggested caution? It's like they decided to play the long game, prioritizing their workforce even amidst the uncertainty.
Exactly. And that decision, as counterintuitive as it might have seemed at the time, might have played a role in preventing a deeper economic downturn.
Okay.
By keeping those paychecks flowing, businesses help sustain consumer spending, which is a vital engine of economic growth.
So this wage puzzle wasn't just an interesting side note. It was a crucial part of the story, highlighting the complex interplay between business decisions, market forces, and the overall health of the economy. It makes you wonder what other seemingly small details might hold the key to understanding the bigger economic picture.
Now, that's a question worth pondering.
Mm-hmm.
And it underscores the fact that economics isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet.
Right.
It's about people, their choices, their behavior, and the ripple effects of those choices.
It's about understanding the stories behind the statistics, the human element that drives the economic engine. And sometimes it's those unexpected plot twists, those seemingly counterintuitive decisions that reveal the most profound truths about the way our economy truly functions.
Well said. The early months of 2024 gave us a masterclass in economic complexity, reminding us that there's always more to learn, more to uncover, and more to understand about this fascinating and ever-evolving system we're all a part of.
It's been a wild ride through the first 8 months of 2024, that's for sure.
It has.
We've seen it all from post-holiday spending sprees to election jitters,
Yeah.
from supply chain struggles to that fascinating wage growth paradox.
And the big takeaway for our listener today.
Yeah.
The economy is a dynamic, unpredictable beast.
Right.
But by staying informed, embracing adaptability, and understanding the interconnectedness of it all, that just might give you the edge in navigating whatever economic adventures lie ahead.
Words to live by, both economically and otherwise. This has been your deep dive into the U.S. economy in early 2024, a time of uncertainty, adaptation, and perhaps a glimpse into the future of the workforce. Keep those thinking caps on, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.